Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Samfiru Tumarkin live employment law show. My name is Sandy Chen. I'm an employment lawyer located in Vancouver, BC. Our firm has offices across the country. So we might have some viewers here from Ontario or Alberta. I'll be here for the next half an hour answering any questions related to employment law, related to any issues you're having at work, bullying, harassment, if you've been let go, if you are dealing with, vaccination mandate issues, which have been very prevalent these days. So if you want to type in your question, I think we have viewers here from Facebook and YouTube. I can't see you. You can see me, but I think if you type in your questions, it'll show up on my text box here to the right. So if you just type it in, I should be able to see it. And I'll try to get through as many as I can today. Obviously, in BC, there's a lot going on. We have the new public health order for, I think, long-term care homes, which came to effect a week ago. Employees of long-term care homes now, private hospitals, and assisted living facilities all have to get their vaccines. I forget what the exact date is, but there's a new public health order, as I'm sure a lot of people here know, coming into effect October 26th. For healthcare workers. I don't believe a copy of that order is out yet, but I think the intention is that healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, contractors working in hospitals will all have to be vaccinated by the 26th. So lots of things going on, and I know certainly these days I'm getting a lot of questions from people asking about mandatory vaccination policies at their workplace, not necessarily in healthcare, but other workplaces, so offices, law firms, whatever, manufacturing plants, packaging plants. So it is the hot topic of the day. So I'm seeing some questions coming up here. So ANL Hyatt asks, can you speak to military members who refuse and how they can avoid an LOA? ANL, can you just clarify refuse? What are they refusing? I'm going to be frank with you. The military service members are governed by completely different legislation. I'm not sure that if you're talking about the vaccine, I'm not sure that they can refuse. And they're not normal employees per se, as I'm sure you understand. Tracy asks, is it true that my employer is liable if I don't get the vaccine? I am a building superintendent in Toronto. So Tracy, I'm in BC. I'll try to give you some general guidance because I am aware of stuff that's going on in Ontario, but I as I said, I practice primarily only in BC. If your employer is mandating a vaccine, in my view, the fundamental question comes down to, is it their choice or is it the government that's telling them to mandate a vaccination policy for all their employees? In your case, I'm not aware of any regulations in Ontario that say that that say that your employer has to give you the vaccine, or sorry, that your employer has to mandate a vaccination policy. If you give me some sense of what industry you're in, I can maybe try to answer that better. My colleague from Ontario will be on here next week if you want to come on that show. And so he obviously practices Ontario, would know this better than I. But I encourage you to attend his section. I think it's next Wednesday. Okay, so Tom K asks, if someone is fired based on vaccination status, I hear you guys say that you can get them severance, but can you get their job back? Tom, that's a good question. And I guess the answer is sometimes. And let me just explain that. So if you're in a union, that's a different story, right? If you're in a union, talk to your union rep about whether you can get your job back. If you're not in a union, typically most people don't have job protection unless there's some ground under the Human Rights Code that protects them. What I mean by that is if an employer decides to let you go for not getting the vaccine, they can do that, right? And as you said, Tom, they have to pay them severance in most cases. Um, where a lot of issues arise is if someone can't get it for medical or religious reasons. And I'm sure everybody here, interested in this topic has heard this a million times, right? Medical and religious reasons. Um, it's gonna be, I mean, each province has their own human rights tribunal that decides these issues. I don't think any lawyer can, in the country right now, can tell you with 100% confidence how that's going to develop. An employee is going to have to file a complaint with the Human Rights Tribunal. That's going to take a long time to go through the process of getting to an adjudication. So, but technically, if you can't get the vaccine because of a medical condition, the Human Rights Tribunal has at least in BC, has the power to award you your job back. And something else I'll say, I'm sure most people here probably are aware, but the medical exemptions, a lot of the colleges that regulate physicians in Canada, so each province has their own, have issued these guidelines, or have told their members that essentially, there are very few exemptions to getting the vaccine. One of them is if you're allergic or if you had a bad reaction to the first dose. So, my understanding is, they're very limited exemptions that doctors will provide a note for, and they've been discouraged to do so. But I mean, yeah. So one of the options is if you can get that note from your doctor, that gives you some job protection. If your employer wants to let you go for not getting the vaccine. The religious exemption is a trickier one. It's I usually encourage people that call me if they have a religious exemption to try to get a note from their religious leader or their pastor, and give that to their employer. So sorry, Tom. I know that was a long-winded answer, and I hope that it's that gives you some sense of if you can actually have job protection if you're not in a union. But you got to have a legitimate, reason, and that reason has to be, in my view, either a medical or a religious reason. There's other grounds under the Human Rights Code that might apply. In BC we have political belief, but it's we'll see how that develops in terms of whether in opposition to vaccines is considered a political belief under the Human Rights Code. So, I hope that gives you a sense of the issues. I know that's not really an answer, but yeah. So Nicole Adams asks, what about liability notices to the employer when they are mandating the vaccines? Is it worth it to send one? I mean, Nicole, I've seen those notices. I'm not sure that actually changes anything in terms of your severance or your potential claim under the Human Rights Code. But I don't know that legally helps you or hurts you in any way. So CN, where can we go to seek help like this in the USA? Yeah, CN, sorry, I don't know. I'm in Canada. Glenn asks, no doctor will provide an exemption. They have been told not to. So Glenn, I think, and your knowledge is probably as good as mine. I mean, it's just from news stories, right? I certainly don't have any insider information, but my understanding is that they've been encouraged kind of to only provide exemptions for certain medical conditions, and those are very limited. I think I suspect that a lot of doctors might not want to go outside of those exemptions because they, maybe they'll get in a little bit of trouble. I don't know. But I think the current state is, there's two or three, or maybe there's a few more now, medical conditions that doctors will write you a note for to not get the vaccine. Lauren Murray asks, if there are laws that prevent mandatory vaccination, how can the government override those laws? If it's because of the emergency orders, why don't they have to pass the Oakes test before doing this? Is it not concerning from a legal standpoint that the government is pushing this, especially when new information on the potential dangers of the vaccine come out all the time? Yeah, Lauren. So, I mean, it's someone's going to have to. The orders are law until someone challenges them under the Constitution, right? Those and I'm certainly no constitutional law expert, but those challenges are based on evidence and take a long time. So anybody could go challenge these laws right now under, I assume, whatever section 7, section of the charter. The Oakes test, before I don't want to get in too much into the kind of the legal doctrine of how you challenge the constitutionality of these laws, but the Oakes test doesn't come up until you actually prove that there's been a violation under the charter. It's kind of the second step of the analysis. So you have to prove, for example, that some law violates the security of the person or the liberty or the life of someone. And then once you prove that, then you move on to the Oakes test to see whether that's reasonable and justifiable in a free and democratic society. I won't get into it too much. I think that's more of a constitutional question. I'll try to stick to the employment law stuff, which I know better. Brenda says, I'm in BC, and my doctor says they are not allowed to give notes. You have to fill out the form on Service Canada. Brenda, I'm not sure what form that they're referring to. I think that my understanding is the doctor, like I said, they're allowed to give notes, but there's just very limited reasons that they're allowed to give out notes for. So Candace asks, I work as a contracted cleaner for Canada Post. My boss said Canada Post has mandated the vaccine for November 1st. They haven't mandated anything from what I was told by the head postmaster. If I don't choose to get the vaccine, do I continue to go to work till they fire me? What do I do? And will I be entitled to severance pay? Yes, Candace, you should continue going to work until they fire you, or else you're going to give them another reason to let you go, right? If you don't show up to work. So I think go into work up until the point they decide to terminate you. And as to whether you're entitled to severance pay, I mean, last I checked, I don't believe the government has mandated anything that covers Canada Post. I could be wrong, Candace. I would reach out to me if they actually do end up letting you go. At this point, I think you would be entitled to severance because I haven't seen anything mandating Canada Post workers to get vaccinated. I could be wrong, Candace, but please reach out to me if and when you do get let go, and I'm happy to chat with you. But for now, continue going to work and don't give them another reason to let you go. So Shar asks, according to Black Law Dictionary, okay, that wasn't really a question. I'll move on to the next one. So Darren asks, it's a long question. I'll try to skim through it here. So Darren asks, doctors not wanting to get involved. I have several medical problems, including past severe reactions to flu shots, and the doctor says I'm still qualified for the shot. I feel the doctor's not wanting to get involved. How do I go about getting proof? I mean, Darren, I'm certainly no medical expert. That goes without saying. Can you go to a different doctor? I mean, if you had allergic reactions in the past and if they were pretty severe, um, try going to a different doctor and seeing if you can get a second opinion. Um, Without that note, it's going to be tough to refuse the vaccine legally. I mean, obviously, it's a free country; you can do what you want, but to protect yourself from the actions of the employer, which is termination of your employment, you need a note like that. And if your doctor won't get you one, but you can try going to another doctor maybe. So zero gas. I'm not part of a union. I work for a private employer in AB in Alberta. Um, is there anything I can or should do to be proactive? I don't think so. If they haven't announced anything relating to vaccines or what they want to do with whether they'll mandate it, I don't think there's much you can do. Zero until they do, and you can just keep going to work. I mean, so I guess one thing you do if there's a medical reason that you can't get it, maybe go talk to your doctor about it now and see if he or she's willing to write you a note. Um, Sorry, so I think the question box just disappeared on me. I'm gonna try to get my team to fix it here. I know there was a lot of questions that I didn't get to. Sorry about that, guys. If you can type in your questions again to the text box. I know I missed a bunch of them. The box just disappeared on me there for a sec, but it's back now. So if anybody wants if I didn't answer anybody's questions, please type them in again. And I do apologize for that. So I think there was a question from Amanda. Who asks, can I have 3 different pay rates and job titles after only filling out one? I mean, Amanda, if you can just expand on your situation a bit. I mean, you can have 3 different pay rates if you have 3 different jobs. If so if you just expand on what exactly is happening in your situation, I'll try to answer that better. So Carrie asks, aren't vax mandates illegal? So Carrie, I mean, it depends on what you ask by what you mean by illegal. Certainly I can see a situation where somebody could challenge them under the Constitution or the Charter, and they might be rendered illegal. As of right now, they're illegal. They're binding laws that have been passed, or orders that have been issued. So Lauren asks, if your job is mandating vaccines because of the government policy, when they let you go, are you still entitled to severance? Sorry, Lauren, are you asking if your job is mandating vaccines? If you could rephrase that, Lauren, I don't really understand the question. I think what I'll say is, if the government implements an order or passes a law that says XYZ employer, you have to make your employees get the vaccine, and it's out of the employer's control, then you're probably not going to be entitled to severance, unfortunately. The vast majority of workplaces in Canada, the government hasn't done that, right? They haven't said to, I don't know, they haven't said to law firms, they haven't said to, any office type job, they haven't told them that the employer has to mandate a vaccination policy. So it's solely for the vast majority of workplaces in Canada. The government has been silent. Only for certain industries have they said that. So airlines or whatever, marine transportation or railways. I know they've done it for healthcare workers in BC, or they're going to do it for healthcare workers in BC. In very select industries, the government has said you have to make your employees vaccinated, or else they can't come into work. For those types of situations, it's different, and you might not actually be entitled to severance if you don't get vaccinated. Tracy asks, if I'm unionized, can I get a lawyer for not representing me properly? Yeah, you can, Tracy. Those cases are hard. I would go talk to a lawyer about the specific circumstances of your case. All I can say to you now is technically you can, but they're very difficult cases. Dino asks, I'm going to keep this. So you're a contract delivery driver and you deliver COVID test samples to Life Labs from movie sets and medical supplies. 90% of the time I'm driving alone in my vehicle, driving from location to location. Dino, which province are you in? My initial suspicion is you're fine if your issue is that you're scared they're going to let you go. I think you should be okay to get some severance, but let me know what province you're in and who your employer is or what industry they're in. So I'm asked the question of any specific names of which doctors we can go to for exemptions. I unfortunately have no idea. I'm going to try to refrain from that conversation because, I'm not a doctor. Obviously, if your doctor won't write a note for you, I can't question that. I'm just saying, people get second opinions all the time. So if that's something that, if you're not getting a note from your doctor and you feel that the vaccine will really have deleterious effects on you, maybe go seek a second opinion. I don't know any specific doctors or anything like that. Cindy asks, have you actually been successful getting maximum severance for being terminated as a result of refusing to vaccinate? I can't talk about the cases, Cindy. I will tell you that in general, it's none of these cases have gone to court, Cindy, because it's so recent. I'll say that in general, cases do settle. In terms of getting maximum severance, as far as I know, because all this stuff is so recent, these policies, none of these have actually been litigated in court. So I hope that answers your question. Ultra asks, can a BC employer force an employee to pay for regular rapid tests? So Ultra, my view on that is no. If your employer is covered by the Employment Standards Act, there's a specific provision under the Employment Standards Act. I think it's section 17 or 18 that says you can't pass off business costs to employees. Other provinces are different. I think in BC, especially if your employer is covered by the Employment Standards Act, they cannot do that. So I'm getting some U.S. questions here, which again, I'm an employment lawyer in BC. So for anybody here from other provinces or from the U.S., I do apologize if I can't answer your questions, as I'm not familiar or as familiar as with the laws in those jurisdictions. So Rita asks, I'm a healthcare worker in long-term care. I am on unpaid leave till end of the month. I have a pension. Being terminated does it affect the pension? So Rita, yes, it does affect the pension. Your pension, if you're let go, if you have a defined benefit pension, which is usually based on length of service, obviously being terminated affects your pension that way because you can't accumulate any more years of service. If it's a contribution plan, the employer contributions to your pension will stop after you're terminated. So yes, being terminated does affect your pension. if you, I'm happy to chat more about it if you want to contact me and give me the details of your exact pension plan. Obviously, it's in some situations where you're so close to a full pension or some other milestone in your pension plan based on your length of service, it's obviously a big deal, right? Like if you're a year away from full pension and they let you go and you can't get it, that's obviously a big deal. So yes, terminations does affect your pension plan. So Charlene asks, I'm facing vax mandate or second choice testing every week on my time at my expense. How can a change of contract be introduced after 20 plus year employee? Yeah, Charlene, it's happening to, a lot of people in BC and all the other provinces, right? I mean, it's a question of, whether, well, I hope, first of all, I hope they're not making you pay for it, because as I said in BC, in my view, that the Employment Standards Act doesn't allow that. They can introduce a vax mandate, but you can say no. And depending on the industry you're in, if you refuse the mandate and they terminate you, you're going to be entitled to severance. Employers introduce changes to contracts all the time. The issue is whether you're going to accept that or not. And if you don't accept that, the employer typically has a choice, right? They can let you go and pay you severance, or they can just let you keep working without that change. So I get it. It's tough. It's a tough situation to be in. Obviously, you've got to choose between your job or getting the vaccine. For a lot of people that I'm sure are on the show right now, it's an extremely difficult situation to be in, choosing between your livelihood or getting this vaccine. But I think what I'll say to most people here is you're probably entitled to severance if you say no to the vaccine. There's limited situations where in certain industries where you might not be entitled to severance. But I think before you make that decision, like talk to an employment lawyer, and just because it's impossible for me to sit here and give anybody good legal advice for their particular situation. I need to know more details about obviously everything that's going on with your case. But I think I can say in general, most people that are let go for not getting the vax should be getting severance. Obviously, as with everything in the law, there are exceptions. So Lyle asked something about constructive dismissal. I'm sorry if I missed the first part of your question there, Lyle. If you want to resend that, I can answer that better as to what is or is not a constructive dismissal. Lauren asks, the government has mandated vaccines for certain healthcare workers. You can get by right now with testing, but if I have to be vaccinated at some point and choose not to, would I be entitled to severance? If not, why not? So, Lauren, there's two levels where you can challenge these vaccine mandates, right? The first level is, I guess I would call it the employment level, where your employer has said you have to get it. The second level is you can actually challenge the law, and you can say the law is not constitutional. In your case, if you're a healthcare worker, and again, I haven't seen the new public health order. I know it's supposed to come into effect October 26th. I haven't actually seen a copy of it, but let's assume it applies to you, right? Right now you can get tested, but let's say as of October 26th, you have to get the second dose, or you have to get both doses. The reason that you might not be entitled to severance is because the government has mandated it for you, right? If you want to challenge that mandate, you can't do it at the employee-employer relationship level. You have to challenge the law and say that it's not something consistent with the Constitution. So I hope that answers your question. You might not get severance because the government has said that your employer has to mandate this vaccine, and so it's really out of their control. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if I can clarify anything about that. But And Lauren, if you're in a union, as a lot of healthcare workers are, severance works very, very differently. I would talk to your union rep and see what they have to say about it. So guys, I do apologize. We're out of time. I know I wasn't able to get to, there's about 10 or 15 questions left. My colleague Dan is on tomorrow. So he will be on, I think at the same time tomorrow, but yeah, please do, if your question wasn't answered today, please do attend that. And Dan, I'm sure will be able to answer, the questions that I missed today. I will be back in 2 weeks if I wasn't able to get to your question today. But thanks everyone for attending. And again, I do apologize I wasn't able to get through everything today. And I hope everybody has a lovely weekend.